It's been so long since I've just gotten to sit down and talk to you guys. This is Life as a Law Student, and today we're talking about what it was actually like to take the LSAT. So I took the June 2018 LSAT. That was before the digital LSAT got rolled out this year, so make sure that you subscribe to this channel for future videos on how that's different and how best you can prepare. But for now, I'm just going to be talking about my experience, most of which I understand is probably still pretty likely to happen. I studied for the LSAT for several months, and I've made a bunch of videos about that you can check out right here. But I haven't actually gotten into what my actual experience taking the LSAT was like, and some of it I wish I had known beforehand. One of the first things that you have to do when you're registering for the LSAT is to choose your testing center. Now, I was pretty surprised living in Southern California that there was really only two options, and one of them was closed last June. So I ended up driving about an hour and a half away to take my LSAT. That's a long time to sit in the car and kind of stew about how nervous you are, but that's why it's really important to take your practice tests in the proper setting ahead of time. What I would suggest that I didn't really know before is to take all of your practice tests, if you can, in a setting like a public library. That way it's going to be a quiet environment like the testing room will be, but there are still other people around you. They're bustling, rustling papers, making noise, breathing heavy, whatever it may be. You want to get used to that kind of environment. The guy sitting right next to me breathed so heavy. It was really distracting for 4 hours, but I had to get over it because you've paid like $200 to take that test, and you're going to do the best that you possibly can. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised about this, but there were literally hundreds of people taking this test at the same time as me in the same couple of rooms. Most of them were about my age, and so it's easy to talk with them if you want to. But it's kind of difficult hearing some people saying that they've taken it many times and it was really hard, or that this is their first time and they're just winging it, and you don't really know where you stand. That's kind of something you're just going to have to get used to with the LSAT. I hated that. I'm a big control freak. I want to know exactly what I know and how I'm going to do and who I'm going to do it with. But ultimately with the LSAT, it really is a game of just do the best that you can and wait and see. Even when the LSAT was over and my whole family was asking, how do you think you did? Did you do well? Do you feel good about it? My honest response was, I have no idea how I did. And I really didn't. I felt that way with the practice tests too. I never knew if I had gotten it right or wrong, and I just had to trust that my time studying and practicing was going to be enough to pull me through at the end. That ended up being the case as I got a 169, which was right in the middle of the range that I was typically testing at, somewhere between a 167 and a 172. I remember that there was this one girl who was sitting in the same room as me telling me that she had taken it the fall before and just wanted to see if she can do any better. When we asked what she had gotten before, she said a 173, and I was like, girl, what are you doing here? But that point differential was an interesting thing, and maybe I want to stop and talk about that for a second. So what that is, in brief, is that the LSAT expects people to score within a certain range depending on how much they've practiced and their general propensity for doing well on the test. So for me, my general range was, like I said, a 167 to a 172, meaning that with the same amount of aptitude in studying, I, with any given test, might score somewhere in that range. So with getting a 169, some people might have given me the advice to take advantage of that point differential, take the test with the exact same amount of aptitude in studying, and I might score a 172. But the reverse is true. I also could take the test with the exact same amount of aptitude in studying and get a 167. For me, I did not think it was worth it. A 169 was exactly where I felt like I wanted to be to get into the kind of school I wanted with the amount of money I wanted, and I did not want to sit through that test again or do any more studying just to maintain my current level of understanding of the test. So take it or leave it, totally up to you, but my advice would be to set a cutoff score for yourself, which is exactly what I did. I told myself that if I got at least a 167, I was not going to retake the test, that was going to be good enough for me, and that really helped to relieve a lot of the burden waiting for the test. Even though I didn't know how I had done, it had been a long time since I had scored under a 167, so I felt fairly confident that I was going to be able to reach that goal. Okay, so testing center, lots of people, practicing the test, setting a cutoff score. What else? Oh, they do make you follow the rules. Don't bring in your phone, only bring in the kinds of snacks and waters and all of that they allow, because they actually will kick you out if you don't listen. I'm sure that's only going to get stricter than it already is with the digital LSAT. So make sure that you really know what you're doing and are prepared not just to take the test, but to even be in the place where the test is being given. Okay, a quick word about break. You are going to have been sitting in that room for hours. And the whole first hour has nothing to do with the test at all. It's all of the standardized instructions about how to fill in your name using bubbles and making sure that your birthday matches the one on your ID card and all of that crap. And then you're on break and the test is only half done and you're gonna wanna talk to people about it. And then you remember that everyone's test is slightly different than yours. Yes, they all have the same questions, but they're in different orders and the sections are all mixed up. And because there are multiples of every section, you never can be sure that even if you talk about the same logical reasoning section, that the questions within are going to be the same as the person you're talking to. I don't know that I just explained that very well. But essentially, you complaining to one of the people in the room with you that logical game was so hard, they might start saying how easy it was because they're talking about one that's totally different than you. Plus, you're not supposed to talk about individual questions anyway, because if you give away specific information, that's going to be cheating for the person who's also next to you. And you don't want to do that because you're going to get kicked out, and also because you're competing against all these people for your ranking in what your score ends up being. So if you want to talk, fine. If you want to talk about how tired you are or the kinds of sections that you felt confident about, great, do that. But don't talk about specific individual questions, and don't feel bad or good about how you're doing based on what somebody else's experience is, because honestly, it's probably not even the same as yours. Towards the end of the test, I was totally brain dead. And I was glad that the writing section was last because that isn't scored. Honestly, as long as you can show that you can form a coherent sentence and a generally basic argument after 4 hours of very grueling brain work throughout this test, you're going to be just fine. It's really just to confirm that you didn't have to spend 8 months writing your personal statement or something and needing it edited by a ton of people for it to make sense. They're going to spend way more time looking at your prepared pieces of writing that you submitted with your application than they are going to be reading your writing sample from the LSAT. So just do as best as a job you can and then don't stress about it or think about it anymore. Speaking of being brain dead, I would really recommend, if you possibly can, to do what I did and get your mom or your dad or a friend or a sibling to pick you up and drop you off. It's a little hard to coordinate without your phone, but the test is timed, so it's not the end of the world, and trust me, you are not going to want to drive after all of that. Also, this shouldn't have to be said because it's such an obvious piece of advice, but it was an important part of my LSAT experience. Make sure in the last minute of every section that you go in and fill in all of the empty bubbles at the end of your section. You want to make sure that if you have any chance of even guessing them right, that you snag up those points while you can. Obviously, if you can do any elimination work in that last minute to make your guesses have a higher chance of being correct, go for it. But make sure that if all else fails, you have some answer for every single question of that test. I cannot stress enough that you probably will have no idea how you did because it's just that kind of test. But try to give yourself a break from studying for those couple weeks that you have to wait for your results. And just relax, be glad that it's over, breathe, and be excited about why you're taking this test in the first place. I hope it's because that you're going to go to law school and you can't see yourself doing anything else. If that's not the case, or it is, let me know either way in the comments below. I would love to hear your story. Make sure you like this video if you feel like it resonated with your experience taking the LSAT or helped you with your upcoming one. It's been a little hectic with commencement this month, but I'm excited to get back into the swing of things, and I hope all of you are too. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless until next time.